Okay, so when you think about the laws in the Old Testament, there's one number that almost certainly pops into your head. It's the one we all know, the one supposedly carved on 2 stone tablets.
Yep, 10. The 10 Commandments. For a lot of us, that's where the story of Old Testament law pretty much begins and ends. You know, the big foundational rules for how to live.
But what if that's not the whole story? What if I told you that those 10 were just the tip of the iceberg? That they're just a tiny piece of a legal and spiritual code so huge, so detailed, it touches basically every part of human life you can imagine. Let's get into it.
Because the full number of laws or mitzvot that scholars have traditionally counted up, it's not 10, it's 613. And no, that is not a typo. We went from 10 to over 600. That completely changes the picture, doesn't it?
So, what on earth are in all these other laws? Well, they make up this incredibly comprehensive code that goes way, way beyond the big moral stuff. It gets into the tiniest details of daily life. Let me show you just how specific we're talking about.
For example, you've got laws that deal with your personal appearance. Law number 68 here specifically tells you how you can and cannot cut your hair.
Then there were rules for farming. Law number 237, for instance, says you can't plow with 2 different kinds of animals, like an ox and a donkey, yoked together. It seems to be about keeping a certain order in the natural world.
Just like with the haircuts, the code also had something to say about body modification. Law 72 right here, it flat out forbids tattooing your skin. This was likely to set them apart from other cultures back then.
Now, it's not all about what you can't do. A lot of these are actually positive commands, things you should do. A great example is law number 480, which says if you find something that someone else lost, you have to return it.
Okay, hearing all that, haircuts, donkeys, lost property, you might be thinking this is just a giant random list of rules. But it's really not. These 613 laws were actually designed to be a highly structured system, almost like a blueprint for an entire society.
When you start to group them together, you see this incredible order take shape. There are categories for everything you can think of: how to worship, how to govern, how to run your business, how to take care of the poor. It's all covered.
And the whole point seems to have been to make everyday life sacred. The law wasn't just for those big, dramatic moral moments. It was meant to be a constant daily guide. It shaped how you ate, farmed, got married, and prayed, turning the ordinary into something holy. You can even see how the law built up the main pillars of the community. You had the temple for spiritual life, the courts for justice, the fields for work and charity, and the home for family. And each of these pillars was held up by its own set of very specific rules. So with this insane level of detail, you can start to imagine the weight of this code. Trying to follow such a complex system perfectly would be an immense challenge. It covers everything from the most important principles down to the most microscopic daily choices. And that's what's so wild. On one hand, you've got these huge, universal moral laws that everyone gets, right? Do not murder, love your neighbor. But then on the very same list, you have incredibly specific rules, like don't wear a shirt made of both wool and linen, or even what to do if you find a bird's nest. Both were seen as part of the same holy code.
And get this, the code didn't just stop with what you did on the outside, it went deeper, right into your heart. Law number 15 here literally commands a person not to hate someone else in their heart. Think about that for a second. That's a law for an internal emotion.
And it didn't stop at your feelings either. Your words were regulated too. There were laws against slander and laws against taking God's name lightly. So it was what you did, what you felt, and what you said that all fell under the law's authority. So what do we do with all this today? For thousands of years, people have studied and debated and tried to live by these laws. And it brings us to a huge central question, a question that the source material we're looking at actually asks us to consider ourselves.
And that question, pulled right from our source, is this: what are your thoughts? Are these laws outdated or reasonable? After seeing how these 613 laws cover everything from commanding love to forbidding a certain kind of haircut, what do you think? Are they timeless principles for how to live, or are they just fascinating relics of a time long past?
In the end, these 613 laws are like a mirror. They reflect the worldview of an ancient people and their breathtakingly ambitious attempt to set a standard for holiness in every single moment of life. Whether that standard is beautiful or impossibly burdensome, or maybe a little bit of both? Well, that's a question for all of us to think about.